Good morning, JDD Jaguars, and welcome to another edition of Roadmap to Success. Jaguars, before we begin our video today, I do want to make a quick announcement. We will be having our Valentine's Day this Friday, courtesy of the 8th grade team. So you can purchase your tickets beginning today for the Valentine's Day dance on Friday. With that said, Jaguars, as we begin today's video, uh, we're going to kick off our video in honor of Black History Month. This year's theme is Hallowed Ground. We're going to celebrate the places where people of color have made an impact. And particularly, we're going to focus on Miami. This week, we'll be focusing on Overtown, a community from which many of us here at JDD are from. So we're going to kick off today's video about Overtown. But before we start, I want you to answer this question. How would you describe Overtown today? All right, Jaguars, now that we've had a moment to answer that question, we're going to dive into our video for today, which looks at the musical scene of Overtown in the 1950s and 1960s. And on Thursday, we'll dig a bit deeper into Overtown, how it came to be, both past and present.
Most people in Miami don't think about Overtown unless they're looking down from I-95 and happy they're driving over it and not through it.
It was a booming black city in Overtown. 3rd Avenue, 2nd Avenue, everything was there.
But this devastated neighborhood used to have one of the hottest music and nightlife scenes, not just in Miami, but in the whole country.
Overtown in those days was the swingin'est place in this whole town. People came from everywhere to come to the Night Beat and the Sir John Hotel. Everybody used to come to the Night Beat in those days because that was the place to come. And that's where all the great music, great people were performing. The Count Basie's, Ella Fitzgerald, everybody. It was anybody, James Brown, and it was anybody appeared at the Night Beat in those days.
Before they closed Overtown down, oh man, you talking about Las Vegas style shows.
In the 50s and early 60s, Overtown was the place for black music and black stars.
It wasn't like, oh, I'm a big star, you know. It wasn't like that. They were like, just like ordinary people. But when they came to Miami and Overtown, they could walk out of the club and walk down the streets at 2 o'clock in the morning.
All right, Jaguars. So we wrote our descriptions of Overtown today, but I want us to take a moment to go ahead and respond to this question. How do people describe the Overtown of the 1950s and 60s? Whether it's information from the video or information you've heard firsthand. How do people describe the Overtown of the 1950s and 60s? Please take a moment to share out your responses.
Lena Horne, Nat King Cole, Josephine Baker, Sam Cooke, Aretha Franklin, James Brown, Joe Louis, Muhammad Ali, and many, many more made Overtown a second home.
Cab Calloway owned a two-story house there in Overtown. There was a young black girl that lived in that house, in that rooming house. She ended up having a kid, and that kid was Ben Vereen.
Lena Horne lived in Miami. In fact, she went to school at a private school, in Mrs. Powell's school, which is right behind what is now the Theater on the next street.
Lenny Kravitz's mother, she was born in Overtown. Yeah. Roxy Roker, that's her name. She was born in Overtown.
Sam Moore, of the legendary Sam and Dave, soul music soul men, grew up in Overtown. The duo hooked up when Dave showed up for a talent show at the Miami club King of Hearts, where Sam was the MC.
And I'm trying to pull my foot back, because the poor guy, sweat is just pouring out of him. You may have thought he had been into the pool. And I'm trying to step back, and I don't want to take it away from him. And the microphone fell over. And when it fell over, I panicked, and Dave panicked, and we both fell to the floor to get the mic, like a Joe Tex kind of thing. And the audience thought that was it. Oh my God. The whole place erupted. They screaming, all right, hey, Sam and Dave, oh, blah, blah, blah.
Their music was, well, very gospel sounding at the time. And I ended up recording them in the 60s.
Miami was an essential stop on the Chitlin circuit, and black stars were big draws at the top hotels on Miami Beach. But during segregation, they weren't allowed to sleep there, so they would go back across the bay to Overtown.
All right, Jaguars. So we heard a bit about the famous people who came to Overtown to perform, but they did so after performing on Miami Beach. And the video mentions a bit about why they had to leave Miami Beach. So let's go to answer that question again. Why did black artists have to leave Miami Beach and go to Overtown for the night?
Then when the Sir John came in, that's when there were a little more action came into town, because that's when they started to bring in acts like Dinah Washington. And Sammy Davis used to stay there, and Nat King stayed there when he worked at the Fontainebleau. They had to stay at the Sir John, because they couldn't stay at the beach on the beach.
And the party began once they came over, because it's like, okay, I done worked for them. I done made my money. Now let me enjoy myself and my people. Now I can get down the way I want to get down.
It was all packed into a 7 by 14 block area just north of downtown and west of the railroad tracks. Black people weren't allowed out after dark, but being squeezed in made for musical and all kinds of heat. Overtown was small town, even for big names. But Overtown's music never exploded like Harlem Jazz or Detroit's Motown. In the 60s, as the civil rights movement and desegregation began to open things up for blacks, the I-95 and 395 freeways were built through the neighborhood. They destroyed hundreds of properties and displaced thousands of people. Overtown was silenced.
We knew that come hell or high water, this thing would still be standing. There's still some place where we could go to for some particular thing that we could do. But then when all these changes were made, then we knew that all of that was behind us. And all we could do is perhaps tell our children and our children's children about what used to be.
Alright, Jaguars, I hope today's video has been informational. But before we close out, we do have to answer one final question. What happened to Overtown? Or what happened to Overtown in the late 60s that transformed it and got rid of the successful businesses in the music scene talked about in this video? Take a moment to answer that question and share it with folks in your class. Alright, Jaguars, that is it for today's edition of Roadmap to Success. Be sure to tune in on Thursday for more history on Overtown as we celebrate Black History Month in hallowed grounds.